All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. And it's been like that for over a year. And the plan is for it to continue to be the #1 show on innovative teamwork. To my regular listeners, you already know how I get down. I bring you some absolutely gems, some incredible people. And today I'm super, super pumped because whenever I'm learning something new, I'm going to be learning something new with you guys. They have someone who has come up with a term named leisure hacker. All right, I cannot wait for her to dive deeper into this term, how she came up with it. She's a former architect, and as you guys know, my father grew up being raised by an architect, and she left that job, and she's doing some things, take some risks. So I'm really excited to get into her story. So it's Raitsin, right? I want to make sure I pronounce
Raitsin, yeah.
Raitsin, Jeni Raitsin. Before I make this intro too long, just come on, introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll kind of go from there. So.
Amazing. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I love the energy already. Like you said, I'm a former burnt out architect.
Yes.
I used to work as a team lead, and until one day I just decided that I don't want this to be my life. I was working all the time. I was really burnt out. I loved what I did, but I didn't feel like this was my purpose in life. And I decided to take a risk and just go into entrepreneurship. And before I did this, I was constantly trying to understand how can I have more free time. I literally read all the productivity books, habit formation, went into therapy and coaching and whatnot, and just to figure out how can I have a personal life and some leisure inside my job. And this is where the term leisure hacker came about. It started as a blog. I was just reading and sharing with people the information I learned, different tricks and how to hack more. When I say leisure, it's more time, but also more joy and happiness into our life. And this is how I came about to do what I do. And now I help people find less stressful, kind of more efficient ways to get more done in their work, but also have a well balanced, happy, calm personal life.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of what you're talking about that resonates with me and my family because, again, like I said, my father, for a long time, he worked for a company as an architect. And then he, again, like you, decided to get into business for himself. However, he spent so much time in the bit, like working in the business as opposed to working on the business. So that's why, again, I feel like if he knew you existed, then there would have been opportunities for him to say, man, maybe I don't need to do a full hour this day. Maybe I need to put this off, and maybe I need to figure certain things out. And that's why, it leads me kind of to my first question is when it comes to your creative thinking and the way you actually were while what it took for you to become an architect, how do you think that helped you in terms of being able to create the business you created now? Like, how do you think that those habits and what you learned and kind of feeling bogged down by your job, but still knowing what it took to get that job, how do you think it kind of helped you when it took time to became time for you to take that risk into entrepreneurship? I know that's a loaded question, but I'm
No,
sure you.
I love this question. I actually think that a lot of what I do today and a lot of what I did to build my business is just like architecture. When
Yes.
you're an architect, you're just envisioning something that was never there. You're creating it in your imagination, and then you kind of reverse engineer and create a plan to make it happen in real life. And this is exactly what I did with my business and how I help people achieve their goals. We create a vision, a very, very clear vision of what we want our life to be, what we want our business to be, what we want our relationship to be. And then we understand all kind of reverse engineer and try to understand what do we actually need to do to make it happen. And of course, what obstacles and blocks, now it's mental blocks, we need to overcome to make it the most efficient kind of process that we can.
Now, how do you overcome those mental blocks though? Because I've actually literally just finished writing an article. Now I teach at a school, and one of the cool things at least what I like about the school is that it's year round. We don't take summers off. And I talked about it in an article that we basically are socializing kids to take a whole 3 months off of work. We basically tell them, all right, for a whole from June all the way to August, you don't have school, and we celebrate it. Then we take a few months, and now it's all of a sudden it's Christmas break. We take another 2 weeks off. But actually, before we get there, then they got Thanksgiving. Then you got spring break. So you're really not in school for that long. So by the time you actually get into the working world, and like you had just mentioned, when you actually time to find a job, you have this mentality that you're just deserving of certain breaks. You have this mentality that work is a negative thing. But like you speak on removing those mental blocks. How are you able to do that? Because I know we've been socialized to think work is negative. I think going to work is something to have a negative connotation. So how do you get over that?
We literally train our brain to think differently. We can reprogram our subconscious mind. Like you said, it's just a socialization we learned, a limiting belief, something that our parent, our teacher, somebody told us when we were younger, and now we believe it's to be true. And it's actually blocking us from our success. If we believe that work is hard or work is a punishment or I have to work hard to succeed, whatever negative limiting belief we have as children, now we're adults, we don't need it anymore. We can reprogram our mind. And that's the beauty of how our brain works. The
Mhm,
neuroplasticity of our brain, it's malleable. We can reprogram it and reteach it to think differently. It just needs a process of repetition.
mhm,
If we believe something to be true, it's just because we thought this thought over and over and over and over again and created this kind of neural pathway in our mind. Now we get to choose, we can choose a different thought, a more
mhm,
positive, calm, productive thought. And if we think that enough times over and over again, now this one becomes our new belief. And we get to live our life according to this new belief. And once we believe something, it affects how we feel about this and how we act, and eventually the results in our lives, right? Because if you think that you have to work hard to succeed, or any limiting belief around work, now it creates a feeling of contraction. You feel fear or stress or just like unmotivated to do something.
mhm,
But if you think that work is fun and you get to do something and it's easy, you feel motivated, you feel light, the feeling completely changed, and now your action has changed. You're more motivated to take action, to work in a different way, a more efficient way, and to build something
mhm.
that is way bigger and feels better.
So what are do you have any examples of any clients that have come to you that have been bogged down by that mindset that you're talking about, and you were able to help them, or your process was able to help them to think a little bit differently?
Oh, 100%. I have a
By
lot
the
of
way,
high.
we don't have time limits. All right, so go ahead and do your thing.
Okay. So
I know it
6
can be a
hours
long
later.
process. Yeah.
So I work with a lot of high achieving people, and as a former type A high achieving person, I
Mhm,
think I grew up and my parents always taught me that you have to earn success, or you have to work hard to succeed, and money doesn't grow on trees, and you have to put in and nobody's going to save you, and like you have to do the work. And again, first of all, that's there's good things about that mindset, because I feel like for me personally, it got me to a lot of what I have today is because of this work hard mentality, but the same
There's a
mentality
discipline
also.
with that, because I have a similar.
Yes.
There's a discipline structure that comes with that. There really is. So we're not here just bashing the work hard
Oh,
mentality.
no, no,
Not,
no.
not that. And
100%.
that's important for listeners, because a lot of times you can get your words misconstrued as there's nothing wrong with wanting to work hard. That really actually is the kind of the key ingredient if you're even able to listen to a lot of the things that you're talking about. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Exactly.
But,
No, thank you for clarifying it. I'm just saying that working hard will get you to a certain point, and
mhm,
then there's like this thin glass ceiling that will prevent you to get to your next level. Because
right.
if you only think that you can achieve things by working hard, it will always limit our success. And this is kind of like the fine balance to find how hard or how much work we put in and
Mhm.
how much results we get. And the minute we kind of learn how to reframe work, and I still work, I don't want to say I work hard, but I still put my heart in everything I do, and I work maybe less hours than I used to because I'm working more effectively, but it's not hard anymore. It's
Hmm.
not like this when I say work hard, it's like this push energy we pull. We have to like push ourselves to results and it's becoming hard. It's more of the energy of what we do, of how we do it, and not what. I'm all for working hard and being disciplined and putting in the work. Let's not say working hard, but putting in the work. But then when we kind of reframe our mindset around, oh, we can achieve results with more ease, with less stress, then we even kind of like unlock a part of our brain that holds a lot of innovation and creativity and just flow in our work that allows us to get to that extra, the last 10% of our success, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I think there's a play on words because again, we've been socialized when it comes to work hard. When you say the word hard to 99.9%, probably 100% of the people, the word hard is like a no. It's like I'm not doing anything that's hard. All right. I don't
Mhm.
want to do anything that hard. The word hard means it's negative. It means I'm gonna have to struggle a little bit. It means I'm gonna have to get out of my comfort zone. It means I'm gonna have to talk to some people. I'm gonna be told no. There's gonna be rejection. So anything with the word hard in it, I don't want to do. All right. And we've associated hard work, like hard and work, we've associated those two words. And again, like you, I remember actually reading the 4 Hour Work Week with Tim Ferriss.
Mhm.
And when you really think about it, when you love the thing that you're doing, some people would call it work, but it really doesn't feel like work to you. Like right now, this isn't work, but for some people, it's actually work to have to, get on a show and be, speak and all that. But it doesn't feel like work because it's part of what we do. It's part of the process. So the question that I would have for you is, how do you get people to see what they're passionate about? Jeni, because I could see people coming to you and saying, I hear what you say, Jeni. I love what you're talking about, but how am I going to see my passion? How am I going to see what I'm good at? How is your process going to help me get out of this mental like block that I have and start to focus on the things I love doing? I could love fishing. Okay, well, Jeni, how am I going to get paid while I'm fishing? How do you answer questions like that?
Well, you ask about a couple of things, but I think the best tip to get started is to go with how things feel. And it's connected to what you said about us understanding like the work hard. Because you said the action is the same action. Both two people can sit here on a podcast and talk, and some will feel like this is hard work. I have to do it. I should be on
Yeah.
podcast. I need to push myself. This doesn't feel good. It feels tight. It feels like a push energy. It's this energy, but for us, we're having fun. We're in full energy. We're enjoying ourselves.
Right.
It feels good to do it. And just I want to say to people, start paying attention to
Mhm.
what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And notice the words you were saying. Like you said, hard. The language we use is a lot of the time a great indicator to what we think subconsciously, to those mental blocks. So every time we say, I have to, I must, I should do it this, like this, I
Mhm.
need to, it indicates that there is a mental block underneath the subconscious layers of our mind
Mhm.
because it's an external, like you said, maybe socializing, maybe our parent, maybe a limiting belief that makes us believe that we need to do a certain thing or need to do it in a certain way. And that what creates that negative feeling. If
Mhm.
we reframe it from I have to do something to I get to do something,
Mm.
again, it changes the feeling. So we don't always have to change our job and quit and start a new career. Sometimes we can just reframe how things feel for us and change the feeling and create a different situation from the exact same line of work. It's just the way we perceive it changes.
Right. Now, I'm a former football player. I run every single morning and I'm a kind of a fitness enthusiast. And, I have to ask because I heard you on some other shows. You talked about how eating properly, drinking enough water and doing all these things, how that leads to, more so freeing those mental blocks. Can you kind of give some details on how that helps for now, for the people that are listening?
100%. So when we're talking about our mental blocks or our mental focus, creativity, innovation, it all drives on mental energy. It's the fuel our mind uses to perform better. And our brain is a tiny organ, but it consumes 25% of the calories we eat. So our brain needs good food, a lot of water, decent sleep, rest to perform at its best. So if we fuel our body or our brain with empty calories and caffeine and sugar all of the time, just this is the fuel we fuel our brain with. And obviously, we're not going to get the best performance. So, our physical state, and again, good sleep, sufficient sleep, nutrition, movement, and rest all affects how the basics of our energy, and it can improve our mental energy. And a lot of the time, I say it's such small things. And again, running every morning is amazing, but people can start with drinking more water. There's a beautiful study that was done in the University of London a couple of years ago that stated that people that didn't drink enough water during the day actually decreased their productivity by 14 or 16%, which is a lot. Imagine you can just have another glass or two of water during the day and increase your focus and get more done.
Hmm.
So it's sometimes those small things of healthy snack instead of a chocolate, or just having less caffeine during the day, or just having another glass of water can completely affect how we perform during the day.
Now, again, I don't want to simplify this for listeners. I know it takes work, and there's a lot of people who kind of promise these things, or they tell you that they're you're gonna work less and make more money and all that kind of stuff. You were able to create a step-by-step framework, a step-by-step process towards getting this done. And I'd love for you to just kind of share how you were first. I mean, before you get into the steps, how were you able to get it to where you can get it to a step-by-step framework? Because there's so much information about this stuff out there. So to make it so you get it step by step, this is what you do. How are you able to focus enough to get the step by steps? And then you can kind of talk about the steps that you take people on when it comes to this too.
I do have a step-by-step framework. I think it's my architectural brain that likes putting things into processes and steps and
But to me,
helping
that's
people
important
realize that.
though, because again, there's so many people that need the work and need everything you're talking about, and they don't know where to start. Like I just mentioned, my father, I tell the story all the time. My father had his voicemail was architectural solutions. Like it didn't matter where we were, vacation, he was on his laptop working, do it because he was his own boss. And again, you know how that business is, especially when you've worked for a company, now you have be your own boss. You probably feel like you got to go overdrive and make sure certain things get done. So the fact that you have it step by step means it's something like somebody like my father would actually follow it. Like I could have gave this to my mom and say, yo, mom, make sure dad follows this damn step-by-step process so he doesn't burn himself out. And there's just more awareness, and you're like aware of your surroundings when it comes to how you build. And again, it leads to more money, guys. I want to make sure I'm on the record saying that. This type of thinking leads to more money, because you won't be feeling like work. You will be actually you'll be making productive strides when you sit down and you do what it is you do. So with that, I know I get a little long-winded with these, but go ahead. I get excited.
No, I love this. I also think that no matter what we talk about here, or anybody that listens to any podcast, reads any book, I think we kind of been fooled to believe that knowledge is power. And I know you work in a school and I love learning new things, but knowledge is just 20% of the change. We can read all the books and listen to all the podcasts, and it's not going to help us. We need to act, and we need to repeat it. And I always teach, and part of what I teach is mental fitness. And just
Yeah.
like with fitness, physical fitness, it's not enough to know how to do the exercise or go to the gym once in a month. It's not
Yeah.
going to help us build the muscles we need. And a lot of the work with overcoming mental blocks and becoming more efficient and
Mhm.
working less and making more money is building mental muscles. And it only comes from practice and repetition.
Mhm.
So, whatever we do, we have to build that mental muscles, that mental strength that will help us to implement all the knowledge we're talking about here. Because otherwise, it's just, oh, I know this. And this is like the most dangerous words a person can say, oh, I know this already. Because if you know something and you're not implementing it, you're just living in this illusion of, I
Right.
have all this knowledge. But if you're not seeing the results, you're probably not implementing enough of the knowledge you already know or don't have the right knowledge.
I again, as a former football player, I would see it all the time. You know, football coaches. I played at the collegiate level, and every week they'd give scouting reports. I mean, whole packets of paper to these players. Scouting report, whether it's a scouting report, whether it's the game plan, so much information that half of the players, half of us, would not even look at throughout the week. Would not even look at. But these coaches, again, they go over these X's and O's. We go over these plays, and you're thinking just because you have the information or you're giving out the information, you think that it's actually having an effect. I mean, one of the greatest, I actually talk about it in my book, is a quote by John Wooden. He said, never mistake activity for achievement. And it's so important that you get a hold of that, because it's so easy to look like you're working hard. It's so easy to have your head filled with so much knowledge that you act like you know everything, when again, you just said it, knowing everything is incredible, thinking you know everything is incredibly dangerous, and you don't move forward. So I'm assuming, Jenny, that your step one in the process would be to, make sure people know that they don't know everything. Like, how would you, if I'm, coming to you and trying to work, but like as a client, what's the first step that you take us on? What's the journey that you would take a potential client on?
Awareness to what are you doing right now? What is the result you're getting? Your mental blocks, identifying your patterns. And it's something that each of us can do. All the listeners can just start paying attention, because what we do or what we don't do and need to do usually comes in patterns. Are we avoiders? Are we avoiding hard conversation, or are we procrastinating tasks to the very last minute? In my process, I actually have an assessment that helps us figuring this out. But just people would say, are we a people pleaser? And we always say yes to everything, and we are left at the end of the day with a whole bunch of tasks feeling overwhelmed. Are we more of the controlling side, and we're trying to control everything and we don't have the flexibility or innovation in our process? Just start paying attention to how you work. Are you easily distracted and just jumping from thing to thing? Just start paying attention. Once we have awareness to how we operate in the world, it gives us insight, and it's the first step of creating a change, understanding like, oh, I always do this. I don't actually want to do this anymore. It doesn't feel good to me. And then we can actually learn how to shift and implement different thought patterns, and then again create implementation and integration and reframe our thinking.
Right. So I don't. I want to make sure I pause you on awareness there, because you just kind of mentioned something. I don't want to brush it over. Is Are you afraid of having difficult conversations? Do you run away from difficult conversations? This translates, and this kind of starts to permeate itself in your relational life too. All right.
Mm-hmm.
We are not just talking work here, but I can tell you right now, there's a lot of listeners that are in right that are guilty of this very thing. When you know you need to be texting a person back, or when you know there's a difficult conversation, as opposed to picking up the phone and having the conversation, you start sending out texts, you start using excuses to not have the direct dialogue. And too often are there people there who are coddling you and telling you it's okay that you do that. That is not what this show is about. That's not what the kind of people I have on this show, and you guys already know that. So if you're uncomfortable right now, again, see you later. We won't think anything of you. But the people that do stay, understand you've got to be very aware and be willing to have difficult conversations, because no matter what it is you're trying to do, being aware of your flaws, that is the only way we can start to see improvement. All right. No matter what, when you're aware of your flaws, when you're able to get out of your comfort zone, get out of that, then, people like myself or somebody like Jenny can help you start to see it. And then you're starting to recognize it. You start recognizing it, and then you're able to take them to the next step. So again, I'll let you go with the next steps of your process after the
I
aware.
actually have a small caveat to say about what you just said, because I
Right.
completely agree. And I love that you said that just we're not going to just cuddle you and say, like, oh, it's okay. And also, we have to be really, really careful of self judgment over here, because a lot of the
Have
time,
that pause.
when
Yes. Air high five.
okay, air high five. We are becoming aware of our patterns with blameless discernment. A lot of self-compassion here, because what happens actually that people think, and this is how a lot of us grew up, we have to be hard on ourselves to succeed. And actually, that piece of judgment is what's blocking us a lot of the time from change.
Mm,
When we say, like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Why do I always avoid hard conversation? Why did I procrastinate? Why do I do this? This self judgment is blocking us from change. So we can view what's going on, but with blameless discernment, just discerning the reality of how we operate, whether it's good or bad, but without judging it. Because when we enter self compassion and say, like, oh, I actually avoided this conversation, I needed to pick up the phone, that's okay. What can I do better?
mhm.
That little piece of self compassion actually opens the door to a more positive behavioral pattern.
It does. It definitely does. Yes. There's no judgment at all. And it does help getting around people who own up to their flaws and being around folks that say, hey, look, I messed up. I was too, sometimes I myself get in trouble because I'm too passionate. I start believing too much. And, I end up kind of lying to myself when it comes to being able to do certain things. So, thank you for the caveat. And I want to make sure we get all your steps in. So what's after awareness? I believe the next step, I go ahead and
So
share.
the next step is just quieting our mind. The
Mhm,
reason for it is that all of our negative pattern or our self-sabotaging behaviors come from a part of our brain that is our survival brain. It's that mechanism that in the past we were walking in the woods, see a tiger, we needed our body to hit the fight or flight response.
mhm.
But now a lot of the time we don't have tigers or lions, and our brain perceives this hard conversation or this email we need to send or this deadline as a threat to our safety. This
Yeah.
is what keeps us small and in our comfort zone.
Wow.
So, the second step is actually regulating our nervous system. We have to inform our brain that, hey, you're not in a situation that requires a survival response. You're calm, you're safe, that's okay. It's just an email, it's just a deadline. It's
Yeah.
fine. Like, calm down. And we can do it through many, many ways: meditation, mindfulness. Again, just getting up, washing our face, having a glass of water, just calming down our nervous system and regulating. And
Mhm.
then from that, we can learn a more positive, focused, confident thought pattern. We can choose it and we can practice it, and then that becomes our new reality.
Right, quiet in the mind. That's another big one. That's a very huge one. I remember actually being a member of Toastmasters and developing as a, believe it or not, I wasn't always a great public speaker. I had to really develop it and, practice it and all that. But one of the pieces of advice that was given to me is like, when you're up on stage, don't forget to breathe. Just breathe. That was the biggest thing, like, and then give your speech and do what you got to do. So quiet in the brain is huge. And it's a three-step process, right? Or four?
Yeah.
Three-step. What's the
And
final?
the third one is actually cultivating a positive thought pattern or response. And I do teach practical tools for all the things, but we're not going to get to it now.
Right.
But when we are identifying our thought pattern and quieting our mind, which is the big step, we can actually access that part of our brain that is more confident, focused, positive, action oriented that we need.
Mhm.
And in my practice, I teach different tools how to cultivate action taking or creativity, innovation, focus, whatever we need. We have different exercises because it's mental fitness.
Yeah.
Just like we have different exercises to train our biceps and our abs and whatever, we have specific exercises that we train our brain to think positively.
Mhm.
But that's the most important piece, just being aware of what we're doing and quieting our brain.
And one of the things you actually also did mention is, there's a lot of folks on Instagram that tell you got to meditate for like 3 or 4 or 5 hours throughout the day and stuff like that. But your system is about maybe 2 minutes here and there, focusing up 2 minutes, maybe 3 or 4 times a day, and you're able to move forward. And that's actually what I really loved about everything that you were about and everything you're talking about is you get very, very practical to the actual person to say, who has time 3 hours a day to go
I'm busy. I want to get things done. I
right.
don't have time to meditate a couple of even 45 minutes. First of all, I I believe in meditation. I love it, but I think for me it's really I'm a very kind of like
Get
anxious
to
person, and sitting down for 45 minutes and just being in peace, it's really hard for me. That's
Yeah,
why we have different tools to help people that don't have the time or don't like meditating
right.
to exercise our brain in a different way and still allow it to kind of calm down and regulate.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm a super practical person. I just like things that work.
Yeah, and that's always the misconception when you talk meditation or you talk quiet in the mind. You know, a lot of the times I've told people about that. The misconception is you got to be this woo-woo person that's weird and sitting, you know, for 2 or 3 hours. They're like, no, that's not meditation. It is just really, you know, there's a lot of things going on in this world. There's emails, there's texts, there's phone calls, there's social media, there's so many things you got to try to keep up with. If you don't have maybe 10 to 15 minutes of the day to just get yourself away from that stuff, you will be
Mhm.
swallowed up in all. It's almost like a wheel. You'll just be on a hamster wheel over and over and over again, trying to keep up with everything. And before you know it, it becomes a habit, the lifestyle, and all of a sudden you just get wrapped up in it. You're checking your phone every 2 seconds. Oh, this one unfollowed me. I'm so upset. Like you will get so bogged out in that world that it is a tragedy to actually see that. So, you know, with all that, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just tell people what's next? What do you have coming down the pipeline, and how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to work with you?
Well, they can find me on Instagram at Leisure Hacker or on my website at leisurehacker.com. And I
Mhm.
have many programs. I have a mental fitness boot camp that we actually go with people 8 weeks and we help them retrain their mind to think differently. All of the steps, all of the tools, all of the exercises, and different programs on how to become more efficient and coaching. So
Now,
you're more than welcome to reach out.
this can be done remotely, or is there a specific location?
Now everything is remotely, on Zoom, so yeah.
Okay. All right. So the what I do, Jenny, with all my guests, I want you to, as I close out the show, I want you to use your imagination. You're the young lady. She's maybe what, couple 2 years into her journey as an architect. She's working for this firm. She's going, you know, she's going like a hamster. She's just working 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. Feels like she's working 25 hours a day. She's just constantly on the move. I want you to pretend that that young girl has come into the Zoom room. Just give her some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close with that.
I think I would tell her, which is me a few years ago, learn how to slow down. I
Mm,
think we've been taught we need to go, 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 and sometimes slowing down is the fastest way to speed up. So
cool.
take pauses, breathe throughout the day, find ways to hack leisure into your day, into your life, and it's gonna be okay.
Oh man, that is it. That might have to be the title of this episode. Slowing down is a way to speed up. Talk to him, girl. All right. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.